Happy Sunday, everyone. I am back, and it's been a pretty horrible week this week. The weather has been, well, it's been pouring down pretty much most of the week, every single day. I managed to get soaked on the way home from work today, which was always a pleasure. And this weekend, we unfortunately had to cancel a garden party because of the weather. I think this is probably the third time we've had to cancel. But anyway, let's just get to it. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching this. This is me, Andy Conway. I am back with another video, and this time is going to be a photo critique. And again, this is hopefully something that I'm going to be doing a little bit more often. I'm going to be mixing it in with the tutorials and the Lightroom editing techniques and all sorts of stuff. So this could be potentially another playlist. I may just include it in my regular videos, and let's just see how it goes. This particular photo critique, some photos have been sent over by a friend of mine called Phil Skinner. Thank you very much, Phil. He's been away to the Norfolk coastline in England, and he sent over some photos, and he's been nice enough to let me go ahead and do a critique on them. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm using Adobe Lightroom, and for this I'm literally just going to be going through each one and seeing what my view is of each image, and giving my thoughts, and seeing how photos could be improved, if at all. They may be all perfect. I haven't seen them yet, so here we go. Okay, so the first photo here I can see the cliff calf. Obviously a very derelict looking building. I doubt very much it's in use anymore. If it is, they probably don't get many customers. I quite like it. It's obviously got a lot of decay and things, and I think Phil here has tried to capture that by emphasising on the structure of the walls, which is quite good. You can make out the cliff calf just here, which is quite good. The sky here, you can see it's quite gloomy. Now these have all been sent to me in JPEG, so I don't know if the photos were originally sent as taken as a raw image and then converted to a JPEG. But these are just JPEG, so I'm gonna have to guess whether things have been touched up or edited. I'm guessing they probably haven't, and they're probably straight from camera, just knowing Phil anyway. I can see the sky. There's a little bit of vignette in here. Now that could be either down to a dark stormy day in the clouds, so it could be a dark cloud, rain cloud over here. If it is, then great. If not, then it could be part of the lens. Some lenses can cause vignetting, which darkens the corners here. I'm guessing it's probably a storm cloud. Now what I would probably like to see is just to zoom out ever so slightly and emphasise that stormy cloud, because with decay and kind of a derelict looking building, obviously it's run down, it's kind of moody, it's gritty, and if there's any kind of overcast or dark skies, that could add a little bit of drama and kind of a dramatic kind of punch to it. So I'd probably like to see a little bit more of that cloud if that was the case, and maybe give the foreground a little bit of room to breathe as well. I can see that there is a path here at the bottom. Be nice just to have a little bit of leeway into the image to kind of give you a sense of scale. Obviously this is a 3-story building here, we can see that. And probably not quite sure what kind of lens. I'm guessing it could potentially be a slightly wide angle lens, maybe a 17 or an 18mm shot, because the lines of the building. This one is relatively straight compared to these two, but you can see the lines kind of converge inwards. This can be corrected later on in editing. Alternatively, to kind of straighten out any lines as you're taking the shot, if you step back probably about another 10 foot and raise the camera up so that you've got your arms up above you, you can actually straighten those in shot instead of kind of taking the main focus here and then having it climb up into the image here. But other than that, I quite like it. As I say, just give it a little bit more room to breathe at the top and the bottom, and that'd be quite good. Next photo. Wow, that's pretty worn out. It's difficult to say what it's in. So it's obviously like some sort of a drive shaft or part of an engine, and obviously it's very rusted. I'm not quite sure whether this is due to the salts of the Norfolk coastline or something that has been battering some of these ancient kind of vehicles or something, but it's an interesting shot nonetheless. I quite like this line here. It's kind of a leading line into the image. It would be good to see the back here in focus. You've got this leading line that kind of it pulls your attention here because it's the brighter part of the image. There is a bright part of the image over in the top left corner here, I can see, but usually the brightest part of the image draws your attention or draws your eye. So keep a note of that. This part is quite bright, which draws my eye down to this part and leads me in. But it leads me into this area here, which is out of focus. Obviously this was done with a slightly wide aperture. It'd be good to see what's going on over here as well, if this is part of it too. You can see cobwebs here, which is again, it's adding to the age of it and the fact that it's just been left for so long. Something that probably this bit here, although it's all part of it, maybe it's this bit here is just distracting ever so slightly. Maybe just to zoom in or focus on certain areas. If this is the area that you wanted the viewer to see, maybe view in and crop in so that this is the main source, just ever so slightly. Quite like it. Okay, got an old steam train, I think. I went on a steam train recently, and down near, called the Bluebell Railway in West Sussex. It's just around the corner from me, and it's the first time I've ever actually been on it, a few weeks back, and it's great. It's really, really good. It reminds me of being in Harry Potter, where they sit in the old carriages and everything. I think it was like something like 1937 or that kind of era. Very old, but still going strong, and they spent a lot of work and a lot of time restoring it. But steam trains have always been fascinating by everyone, and I like this actually. I love the way this image has been captured, and it's just like full image. There's no kind of sky or foreground or anything. You want the viewer to see what's going on in the cabin here, and obviously the driver here, the train driver. It's almost like a street shot, but this kind of image is almost like a storyteller image. I love it. You've got shadows over here, you've got shadows over there, but they're not completely kind of dark. They're not black, which is great. You've still got a lot of detail in. Again, I'm just assuming that these images haven't been edited whatsoever or processed, which means you've got a hell of a lot to play with if you really want to. You can make these darker areas really kick, make it a little bit more contrast. And obviously the driver here. And again, what I mentioned earlier is that the brightest part of the image will always draw your attention first. And obviously it's drawn it to here, and then you see the driver. The driver here is on the rule of thirds, I can see, which again it's really good. You've also got the number of the carriage, which is not cut off or anything like that, so it could potentially be something called a record shot. A record shot is basically taking a shot of something like a building or in this case a train or something, and if should you want to replicate it or have to rebuild something, then you would turn to something like a record shot. Prime example, you could potentially rebuild this area because you've captured that. The driver himself, again, he's telling a story, he's moody, he's obviously looking at something. Now, I don't know whether the train is moving at this point very slow or it's still. The driver's face is ever so slightly out of focus. I'm not sure, again, what kind of shutter speed. I'm guessing it's either a slightly slower shutter speed or the train was moving, because some of these areas aren't pin sharp, and especially the face of the driver. Just a little keynote: anytime there's people involved and you want the main point of the focus going on to that person, have to make sure that person is sharp. If you can't see their eyes, make sure the face is sharp. If you can see the eyes, make sure that the eye itself is sharp. So when you're composing the shot, your point of focus, if you've got multiple points of focus in your camera, so the little square dot, you can put that over the eye and pre-focus on that area before taking that shot. That will help sharpen that area up. But other than that, I like this shot. I think it tells a good story. Okay, next one. Yeah, I like this as well. What you've got here is really good, actually, Phil. You've got a classic old train station here. This looks like quite a nice place to visit, actually. You've got this, I guess, is there some sort of a conductor or a guard or something that stand on the platform? Either that or he's very smartly dressed waiting for a train. I can see that you've got, coming in from the left, a nice leading line into the image, which naturally draws your line of sight all the way in and then up to here. Got a nice kind of rule of thirds going on, horizon on the kind of just below centre, but almost like a third of the way up. I like this. You've got everything down here looks pin sharp as well. Got some suitcases here on the right hand side, some old cases and more there. Again, the aperture was probably, it's difficult to say, but I'm guessing the aperture would probably be between 3.5 and 9 or something. Only reason why I'm saying that is because it starts to lose focus around this area going back. Be good if you wanted to capture this guy, make sure he is again pin sharp, if that's the kind of main focus point. Now he is almost bang center from that point. This, and I can see at the top here, you've got nice on the third here. You've got a little bit of line here. I know it's very, very minor, but what I would do, let me just see something that I would do here. Just tidy up that top, because that little bit OCD kicking out in me, that would just want to get rid of that. So I'd use the crop tool. This is a Adobe Lightroom that I'm using, and I would just, as you put the crop tool on, you can by the way change the default kind of look. So at the moment I've got it on the rule of thirds, third down, third up from the bottom, and then in. I would just crop that down so you get rid of that line altogether. Potentially just crop out this as well, because it's just creeping into the shot. So what you could do is just maybe take it down to something like that. So then it kind of cleans up that top bit. You've got rid of There's a little bit of distraction there, and he's almost bang center now. Just something that I would do. And then obviously when you're editing, these clouds look really kind of dramatic. Maybe just drop the shadows, sorry, the highlights a little bit. If I was to drop the highlights on that area, there you go. You can see those clouds kind of punch, and it gives it a bit more grit and punch. I like saying that word, punch. But it kind of just drops those clouds a little bit and gives it a bit more rawness to it. Looks like it's quite a high ISO used on here, because you see a little bit of noise. You can get rid of noise by going down to detail in Lightroom, just using the noise reduction just a touch, and that will help smooth it out a little bit. So that was before. You can see that's after. Don't go crazy though, because you can get some horrible artifacts and everything. But I like that. Let's go on to the next one. Nice shot here. You've got something here, and I don't know whether that's... So I thought it was a bird at first, but I think, Phil, that your sensor is dirty, because there's lots of little spots here. So I don't know whether you might need to clean your sensor, or let your camera do it. If it's a Canon, I think a Canon and Nikon's, they'll generally clean the sensor before and after you turn the camera on and off. And you can actually do a manual cleaning thing if you go into the menu as well, but you've got to be careful when you clean the sensor. Have a look on YouTube for cleaning your sensor. I haven't done one yet, but all these little spots here, but either they're on the lens itself or on the sensor, these can be taken out afterwards in post-processing. It just takes a little bit more work to do. Nice old tractor here. Oh, I've just realised that I guess the image from before is on the other side of this tractor. It's the engine from this tractor, which kind of makes sense. Okay. Again, lots of decay. I like the way you've got the whole tractor in focus as well. It's pin sharp, this one. I do like that. I probably would have left a little bit more headroom between the top here and the edge of the photo, so maybe just to zoom out ever so slightly. If you zoom out, if you take the photo as is, and you've kind of left a little bit of room like that there, then there's kind of no room to crop should you want to crop later on. Whereas if you was to take a shot and you've got a lot of room, you can crop afterwards if you want to, and that kind of helps when you're taking a shot. Just make sure you just leave enough room all the way around the edge to change it should you need to. But I like the rawness to it. Again, I think you've captured this really sharply. I don't know what lens or something you was using, but that's come out really nice. It's nice and level as well. Let's just check out what the histogram looks like. So look, I mean, it looks level. There's a nice balance, to be honest. The foreground's nice and clear. Nothing is blown out in the sky. Nothing that's too dark. It's showing a little bit of darkness over here. Maybe just bring up the shadows ever so slightly, so you can kind of bring it out more. Just drop the highlights a little bit. What I'm going to do is just give it a bit more contrast. There we go. Something like this would even look quite nice in black and white, actually. Let's just see what it looks like in black and white. Yeah, it's quite raw. I think the sky is overpowering the fact that it's this that's taking attention. You could put something like a graduated filter down, which would kind of darken out that top area to kind of, there we go, to kind of balance it out, give it a bit of character. You see how all these little dust spots here are now more apparent in black and white than they are in colour. If you zoom in, you can use something on Lightroom, a spot removal tool, and basically all you do is you click and then it takes a part of another image and it goes over it. You can just do that with all of them. Or just make sure the sensor or the lens is clean, and review the photo after. Each time you take a photo, just zoom in on the image on the back of the screen and just check all around the edges and make sure everything is the way you want it to be before moving on, because you may not ever get another chance. So it's cleaned up a little bit. I like that. I like that a lot. Nice one. Another picture of the cliff calf, and this time, yeah, this is I think better than the first one, purely because I think you've zoomed in and you've concentrated on one particular area of the building instead of trying to get most of the building in. We know that the building has decayed, and we know that it's a derelict building. Saying that, the windows look really clean, so unless someone's going around cleaning the windows of an old building, God knows. But I like, as I say, I like this shot. It's got a lot of character to it. It can tell a story. It gets you thinking. It gets you asking, well, I wonder what it was like when it was open. You know, was it popular? Was it I don't know what I'm trying to say now. What I would try and do here is, I'm just noticing this little bit over in the top left corner here that's just creeping in as the lines converge as it goes up. So I personally, it's a square photo, it's a square format. Interesting. So I'm wondering if you've already cropped this. Unless you've changed the camera setting to take the photo in square. I'm kind of presuming you didn't, so you've already cropped this. So I wonder if you've actually, let's just go back a few. I wonder if you've actually cropped the original. Let's have a look. I'm just going to see if what you've done here. I'm going to take off the aspect ratio. Yeah, I reckon you've cropped it already. So you've taken that, maybe you've taken that image and you've cropped it down. Just my guess. What I would probably do is, although you may have cropped it, let's just take that edge out, because that is creeping in. It's kind of at the top, but it's not at the bottom. While you're there, just maybe straighten out this window, or at least this part here. Make sure that's dead straight, so you can even line it up as you tilt it. So a little bit like that, but then obviously you've got the converging lines on the right. It's tricky. You could go to something like the lens correction here. Turn that one on, turn that one on. Now again, because these are JPEGs, I don't know what the lens profile is or the camera, so the software doesn't know that either. If you used to shoot in RAW, it can then match down here, matching a profile automatically. It can match whatever camera and setup you've got, so that it can help change, get rid of any kind of distortion, which may help later on. Right, moving on. Oh, I love that. Yeah, I like that shot. I'm guessing this has been, I don't know whether this has been edited ever so slightly, but I really like this shot. You've got all the things that photos should have. You've got character. You're taking a shot like a record shot. You've got this awesome looking train here. A lot of detail here. You've got the driver who's concentrating whether he's trying to reverse it back. You've got leading lines going in, rule of thirds as well. I like that a lot. I'm not much else I can say about that. That's a cracking shot. Just make sure it's pin sharp as well when you're taking the shot. You can even sharpen it up. If it is pin sharp, you can sharpen it up ever so slightly as well. Under detail, sharpening, just push it ever so slightly, and you can start seeing a little bit more sharpness. But you've got most of the image sharp from front to the back. Obviously, it gets a little bit more shallow depth of field over here, but it's probably one of my favourite shots so far. I like that. Close up of rust. I'm wondering if this is rust from that same tractor that we saw earlier. Again, really nice detail in the rust. You've obviously got a keen eye, and you've homed in on certain things that have interested you. You're obviously trying to reflect that in the images you're taking. You can see where it's been focused. It's focused around this area here, because all of this, in fact, this is all like the sharpest point of the image. This area here just blends back. Shush, it's my cat. One of them. Just blends back, bends back into the background ever so slightly, which is why it's out of focus. So I'm guessing that you used a very wide aperture, so a very low f number for this, and I really like it. I love the texture of the rust. You can create some really, really strange textures and things with rust. You've got the cobwebs over here. What is tricky is if I hadn't have already seen photos of a tractor beforehand, knowing that it's kind of near a beach because I could see the sea and the horizon in the background, then I wouldn't know what it's rust of. So just keep in mind that you've taken a picture of this rusty area here, but do you want to emphasize that it's rust on something or rust of something, or are you trying to capture basically the textures and all the little marks and dents and all sorts of stuff in the rust itself? If it's the latter, then zoom in even tighter and sort of show what that is. So give you an example. If I was to crop that in to something like that, for instance. Now, if it was all in focus here, so if we've got a very kind of a narrow depth, a long depth of field, a deep depth of field here, so a larger f number, f8 or f10 or something would do it quite nicely, then this potentially could almost make a rust sandwich or a rust burger. You've got the bun, you've got the burger in the middle and another bun on the top. So again, you could really narrow down onto that kind of thing if that's what you're going for. If it wasn't what you're going for, then so be it. And I like it a lot. I think this area here in the background is just overpowering ever so slightly, so just kind of I'd get rid of that because it's a little bit distracting. And on to the next one. Back to the man at the station again. Similar shot. It's a very unusual crop that you've done here. It's not quite. I'm not sure about the crop here, Phil. I think it's very tight and it's very long and narrow. It worked. I think the other photo worked better personally. Just my personal opinion. I know you've still got the leading lines and everything. It was obviously taken roughly at the same time, I think. The guy is obviously looking in the opposite direction, looking away from us. But what is he looking at? So if you're telling the story, why are you taking a picture of the guy looking away? Was it just because he looked away before you took the image, or is he looking at something? And if he's looking at something, we need to see what he's looking at. If it's a train coming in, then we need to see that train that's coming in. Just something to bear in mind. The bridge here, not quite straight. I'd like to see that bridge just level out a little bit. And we've got the sky is obviously overcast on that day. Something like black and white would work quite well on this particular shot. Again, another little black and white shot. You could really push the clarity or the texture up a bit to make it a bit grungier. Maybe just straighten out, if you'd like to keep that crop, just straighten it out ever so slightly. There you go, so it's a little bit straighter here. And you've got that leading line straight from the corner there. Yeah, it's an unusual crop, that. Shot from above. So I guess on the bridge, looking over. And you must have been down around, I guess, here when you took that previous shot. Looking up that way. Yeah, it's a nice photo. I think you've made good use of the tracks to emphasize the tracks going off into the distance. So you've put it kind of plumb center here, which is really nice. I think going left or right off center with things like this, as straight and parallel like this, it kind of puts it off, but you've managed to do a good job of keeping it straight here. These little markings here on the side, the left and the right here, you've actually got smack bang on that rule of thirds. That also works quite well. Looks like it's just been raining, I think, as well. So a lot of the wet on the a lot of the ground is wet. The sky is quite blown out. You've got some really bright areas there. So maybe a shot like this, you could raise the shutter speed ever so slightly, so it's a slightly darker image. Make sure that nothing is blown out. Let's just check the histogram on that. Yeah, so this area here, you can see that it's the whites of the image which are making this spike on the histogram. So just remember that the histogram, you can also view a histogram on the back of your camera, and you can see shots after you've taken them. I believe you're using a Canon, so when you take a photo, press the play button to review the image, and then press info button. You might have to press it a couple of times, and it will eventually display this histogram in the top right corner. Everything on the left hand side are your darks or blacks or shadows, and everything on your right hand side are your whites, highlights, and the brighter areas. And if you drag down the histogram, you can actually adjust the image just by doing that. So instead of actually dragging the sliders, you can drag the histogram, and it will basically show you what it's doing to try and rectify that, and it is the whites here. So even if I drag down the highlights and the whites, you can see as much as possible. You can see that the clouds are blown out to the point where I've lost all detail altogether. So just keep that in mind. I'm just going to reset that again, back to where it was. Keep that in mind whenever you're taking a photo. Be aware of, if you're going to include the sky, just be aware of what's going on in the sky as well. If you have to lower the exposure to get the sky in, then and make sure it's well exposed, then do so. Just make sure you've also got enough detail here. Another little trick, and it does cost some money doing this, is using something called a graduated ND filter. What that does is, we all know that the sky is usually the brightest part of the image. So what that does is it brings down, I can basically try and replicate it here, graduated filter. It creates a filter over your lens, so you put this filter over your lens, and one half of it is basically darker than the other half. One half is clear and the other half is dark. You can get different strengths, and the whole point is the dark area goes over the sky to bring the sky down, so it kind of does this kind of effect. So it balances everything from the foreground to the background all in place. I use those whenever there's a bright sky. They're really handy to have. And while you can do it like this in post-process and afterwards, as you can see, it doesn't automatically, it's not automatically going to fix your photo every time. So it's best to get it right in camera before you go to edit it. And even at this point, even if I went all the way down the exposure as low as possible, still the sky is still bright. So just a little tip, and as you well know, I'm a Format High Tech brand ambassador, so use Conway 10 if you go to formathightech.com, and you can purchase any of these filters to make your life a little bit easier. Cheeky plug, but you know me. Let's go on to the next one. Back on the station again, and I really like this shot. I think this is going to be another favourite of mine. You've got emphasis and detail on the luggage here. In fact, there's a lot of detail, really nice and sharp and crisp here. Wow, these are really old cases. Tell me something, and you can comment in the comments, make a comment. Were these just there, or were they just on show? Were they kind of locked up? Was it part of a running railway or something? Or be interested to know the story behind these cases, whether they're actually just there for looks, or whether actually there was any kind of a museum thing going on. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Kind of like the jaunty angle that you got here. And yeah, I like it. I really like it. I've got to do it. Let's have a look what it's like in black and white. Yeah, you know, I think I like it in colour. I think you've done the right thing here and put it in colour. Just push the contrast ever so slightly, and just bring out the shadows to kind of bring out this area here, just ever so slightly. But I think you've done a good job here. You've kept the main point of focus where it needs to be, and the eye is not kind of falling off. It's my eyes are certainly kind of looking at all the detail in the suitcases, so that's good. You're training the viewer's eye exactly where you want it to be, which is good. It's a good photo. Another little detail photo here. Not quite sure what you want the viewer to look at here, and obviously we know these are almost like tiles or something. A detail shot of these tiles. There, obviously, you have used a wide aperture, so you've blurred out the background here using a wide aperture, which means you kind of want the viewer to concentrate on the area over here to bring out the detail. If that's the case, then the bits here, I can see obviously you've got some probably bird mark or something. The cobwebs and everything here, so it's obviously representing something that's been sitting here for quite some time. But just pay attention as to where you want the viewer to look, and if the sharpest point is in focus, make sure that it's got an interesting artifact about it. I quite like your kind of the composition on this. You could even actually, what you could do here is you could even change it, so you could flip the image. Let's just see, if I go to photo, rotate right, you could even flip the image. Whenever you take the photo, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be that way up. You could change the way it sits, so you could do something like that just to change it. I think you've done the right job, to be honest, keeping it the other way. But just keep in mind, whenever someone's looking at your photo, what do you want them to see? What's the story you're trying to tell on this particular one? And that's Tamara. So it's a boat that's moored up, obviously. I think the composition with the rule of thirds, you've got bang on. You've got the horizon there in the background. I've just got to do my little thing, make sure it is straight. Just off, but there you go. Straighten it up for you. You can thank me later. And it's a nice, you've got all the colours just right. I think the sky is not blown out. It's very nice, it's calm, it's relaxing. As I say, the sea is on the third of the way up, so using the rule of thirds here. And the boat is the main focus of the image. With this boat as the main focus, again, you've got the name of the boat, which is very important whenever you're taking pictures of boats. There's been a lot of times where you'll see pictures of boats and there'll be a magnificent boats and then the name will be cut off and you think, well, there might be a story behind that. It might be a reason why the boat looks like that because of the name. So having the name of the boat in shot does help a lot. Let's see. Everything is sharp in this one. Now I've got to ask the question, with the boat like this, let me just reset that the way it was. With the boat like this, you can see the end of the boat here, but it's just cut off, and I kind of want to see a little bit more room over here, really, if I was looking at this shot. You've got the rope leading in from the left hand side going in and up onto the boat, but the rest of the boat's cut off, so we can't really get a scale or get an idea as to the scale of this boat. We don't really know how big it is. How far away does it go over here? Is it a very, very small kind of dinghy, or does the boat actually extend into a larger thing here? Let's just bring up some effects and things which can potentially make a little bit of a difference. It won't make a difference to the composition. With the composition, again, the edge of the boat, just leave a little bit more room on this side if you can, so you hit that kind of rule of thirds here thing on the right hand side. Now I've got various different filters and effects that I can use, presets basically, in Lightroom. If I just roll over any one of them, you can see some really nice dramatic effects. I quite like that. That is basically bringing out all the highlights in the sky, and it's almost showing you where the sun is hitting the boat. That could be quite an interesting shot, that. If I just roll down, got some grainy, gritty ones, sepia, some simple shots. Kind of an old film shot, that one. Quite colourful. But that very first one, if I was to start that off with the preset, you could potentially boost the whites up to bring the sunlight out, so it hits the top of that boat there. It's just shadows. Now, although yes, my histogram looks very, very dark, but this kind of effect, you kind of, that's the whole point. You're highlighting something that's coming through the sky. As I say, this is not how the shot should look. I'm just playing around and just to see what kind of effects that you can kind of get with these images. I quite like that. I'm still making sure that we can still read the text here. We've lost the detail here, but it's not too bad. Let's have a look at it full screen. Yeah, it's not too bad. So that's before, that's after. So a little bit of processing and editing afterwards can actually go quite a long way, even with images that... Anyway, let's go back. Next photo. You've got stairways going down onto the beach. It's a very stony beach, isn't it? I hope you weren't sunbathing on that. Jeez. Now I can see where the focus point is. Let me just double check. I'm zoomed in a little bit here, sorry. It looks to me as though the main point of focus, i.e. where you've focused on the camera, is around this point here. Whenever you're taking pictures of that and you've got something right in the foreground in front of you, make sure that that is in focus, because although this bit is in focus, you need that line in to draw you into the image, and you need that to be nice and sharp as well, so it's a little bit easier on the eye. Otherwise you'll find that your eyes will kind of come back here and they kind of have to adjust to make out certain details and things. We don't have to do that. We should be able to see the chains and things over the left and the right here nice and sharp. Again, I don't know whether the sea ever comes up this high, this far up the beach. I don't quite know how large this beach is, and again, it's difficult to get a sense of scale on here. I do like what you've done with the composition though. You're kind of drawing the viewer in, but then it stops quite abruptly onto the beach. So if there was a sandcastle, or if there was something on that beach that kind of leads the eye from the leading points into the image, then it would need to be in that point there, either smack bang in the middle, which creates a very dominant piece of a photo. If you put something smack bang in the middle, it creates dominance. You want something to be powerful, basically. So having an image like this where it's very symmetrical, and I love the symmetry on this, I do like it. You've actually got the symmetry perfect, I can see, which I'm guessing that you've cropped this after, because again it's a very unusual crop here. Nice wide shot, to be honest. So just make sure that there is something for the eye to lead into on there. Nice. More details of I think the Cliff Cafe, I think it's called. Either the side entrance or something. Yeah, I like the detail. Sorry, I was zoomed in. Let me just make sure I wasn't zoomed in on the back one. Yeah, that's fine. So you've got the door here, possibly as either a side entrance or a front entrance, even saying they accept cards, so it could be front entrance. I like the detail and the texture. The thing that is actually bringing me in is this little bit here. It's quite distracting. Although yes, there's not much you can do about that. It's probably pasted on the inside of the door, which you can't get to. But if you're cropping any of these images, which I can see you do, you may have even cropped it on a phone. A lot of these phones now, you have the ability to remove certain artifacts in images. I would definitely remove this piece here, just this bit here, and this bit here. Any kind of distractions here, really. Just so that there's no distractions to the eye. And what it also does is it takes away all of the artificial essence of the image. Whereas you've got this kind of raw, this raw structure. So you've got the building and the brickwork, and then you've got the door. It's kind of faded wood and it's kind of scratched, and the windows are all kind of taped up and everything. But these are very modern looking. So you've got an old thing and a modern thing, and unless you're going for a very specific kind of contrasting shot, definitely get rid of these things. Let's just get rid of them now, just so I can kind of demonstrate. I can see you've cropped it quite a bit, because as I zoom in, this is my full zoom. I can't zoom in much more than that, so I don't know how big the original image was. So I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to open this up in Photoshop, edit a copy with adjustments, because Photoshop I find is a little bit easier to work with whenever you're manipulating some photos. I tend to use Adobe Lightroom to tweak images, and Adobe Photoshop to really get down and dirty. I'm going to do a tutorial on Photoshop as well, because Photoshop is a whole different kettle of fish and it's a lot to learn and get into. So there'll be a Photoshop series along with my Lightroom series. I'm not going to destroy the background here. I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to copy the background layer, hide it. Let's just get rid of that layer, sorry. Okay. Hide the background layer there. And I'm going to... I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to use the polygonal, I don't know how to pronounce it, polygonal or polygonal tool here, marquee tool. Just going to highlight that area here, and I'm going to go to edit and content aware fill. What that does is it looks at all of the pixels around it, and it kind of removes anything in the middle. In fact, what I'm going to do is just go to fill and then content aware and see what it does there. So it's got rid of that. It's done a pretty good job of it. And let me just clone, because I can see a line going down there still. Let me just get rid of that. And what I'm doing is using a clone tool here to get rid of that. Something like that. This is very rough and ready. I'd probably spend a little bit more time if I'm going to be doing something like this. So I've got rid of that side here, and I want to get rid of that there. As I say, I don't want to spend too much time doing this because it's more of a critique rather than an edit. But just to show you what I mean by any kind of distractions, really. So again, edit, fill, content aware, gets rid of those. And I'm going to just get rid of this kind of sticker here. Content aware, fill, and then these bits up here. Don't have to be precise when you're going around these things. Photoshop is really powerful. And there you go. So if I now zoom out, fit on screen, put it at 100%. That's pretty good. Now I've got that little thing which is annoying me. If we're going to get rid of the stickers and advertisements and things, then we need to get rid of all of them, not just leave one. There we go. So now if I save that as is, it saves it, and then it goes back into Lightroom. We've got it there in Lightroom. And there we go. So we've got a little bit more of a kind of a pleasing image there. Again, I like it. I like the image as a whole. I like the composition. I like this little bit here. I don't think that's distracting at all. I quite like that being there. I think without that there, it could just go on forever, and it's almost like repeating itself. But it kind of breaks up the element of the wall, and then you don't have any distractions down here, which is quite nice. And that is the. Is that the last image? Let's just double check. Sorry, I think that is the last image. There's 20 images that we've gone through. I hope that's been quite useful, Phil. Thank you so much for sending the photos over, and I look forward to doing a few more of these photo critiques. This particular critique thing that I'm doing here, these are my own personal views. If you've got your own choice of how you want your photos to look, that is entirely up to you. There's no right or wrong when taking photos. It's just technical aspects that I'm just hoping to help out with, really. So if you've got any photos that you'd like me to critique or to go over, I'm happy to do a video on them. And if you'd like me to mention your name, you are more than welcome. Just let me know whenever you take send the images over. You can send them over to my email, which is contact@andyc.photography, or you can join me on my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/AndyConwayPhotography, and you can like the page and then post them on the page there and just say, hey, look, will you do a critique on this? And if you'd like, I'll do a YouTube video. Otherwise, I'll do a critique on Facebook as well. Be sure to follow me on that Facebook page. Contact me through the email address that I just gave you, or join me and follow me on Instagram, where I'm just uploading photos every now and then, sometimes that you probably wouldn't see on YouTube or even Facebook. And my Instagram is instagram.com/andyc.photography, or just at andyc.photography. Thank you very much, and I will do more videos again and release another one next Sunday. Thanks very much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.